Hi everyone, my name is Patrick Akil, and if you're interested in rapid AI product development, this episode is for you. Joining me today is Nick Gushchin. He has many years of experience in banking and shifted his focus to this tech field specifically for AI and products. He's building out many of them, and the question is, how does he do that? Listen in to find out. Enjoy! I've always said that, and I think I'm very biased, but within this tech field or tech domain, knowledge is being shared effortlessly. When people think of a solution or when they've solved an interesting problem, they don't hold it to themselves, right? The next thing they do is share it somewhere online in a blog form content or on YouTube or on a conference, indeed, with as many people as possible. And I've never seen it from a different perspective or different industry. What is kind of your view in your past experience versus what you see now in the tech field?
You actually almost almost told it. The way how people communicate in tech industry, frankly, and I'm not flattering anyone, but I'm sure that some of guys would know themselves in my words. It's made me so much interested in the tech from the day one when I started to dive in. The way how people share knowledge and how transparent and open they are. And I find this is very different from many other industries. And again, so I worked for 18 years in banking. And in banking, you are exposed to many industries. So effectively, I worked not only in banking, but also in trade, in global trade, in oil trade, in seeds trade, and soft commodities, in construction I was constructing even pig farms, salmon factories, so you name it.
That's a lot, yeah.
A lot of different things, and you are in touch with different sectors of economy. And again, everywhere people share knowledge. But the speed and the amount of this information which is valuable and speed of sharing knowledge, I found in tech community just amazing. When I first started, and we can go to a practical example, not to be very theoretical. My first code was 35 lines long, and I just copy-pasted from someone.
Of course, everyone does that.
And again, I came to the idea that I want to start coding, and then I thought, I had two ideas. I need to start using AI, and I want to code. So, and then I thought, okay, I will code something around AI with AI. So what a brilliant idea. Yeah? And then I do remember several weeks, up to 2 weeks, I didn't know what I'm going to do. I was calling my friends and saying, look, there is this ChatGPT thing, maybe you heard about it. It can code. It can produce a lot of it can generate a lot of information. But what should I ask it? So what would you ask? What should be the case which we're solving together? A lot of my friends, they just said, I don't know, just write a poem or something like that. This is not interesting to write a poem. Write a poem, a person can do, but to write a program, but what program should be about? So I don't want to write a new YouTube or new Windows, but I want to write something. And then I came to YouTube. I watched enormous. I was typing use cases of GPT coding, something like this. So just keywords which should bring me.
Yeah.
I was watching a lot of videos, and then one guy actually shared. He said, "Oh, by the way, you can create your own GPT chat in Telegram, and this is how." And then it was like 40 minutes long video, and where he was explaining step by step how you do it, but with the source code. And then you could copy the source code. And this was for me the first and the starting point. I said, I can create my own chatbot in Telegram, which will be AI powered. And I just took idea of the guy, took his code, which he shared publicly, said, you can play around. I started with these 35 lines. And then a lot I was asking also YouTube to help me when I was meeting problems in my development. Besides reading articles, at some point it had to be, besides speaking to ChatGPT itself and asking it to explain me line by line what's happening here, I was using also, as I said, YouTube podcasts. And then effectively my code grew from 35 lines to 5,000 lines within half a year. And all of this was done because people were able to share the knowledge with the newcomer in the way that I didn't even have to knock the door, call someone. It was all available for me. You just need to know where to look for it, where to ask.
That's beautiful.
Sorry, I might be a little bit long in my answers.
No worries.
I'll try to...
No worries. I'm curious though, because you said this idea of I want to do something with code and AI seemed interesting. I want to do something with AI. So pairing them makes sense. Especially with your history, 18 years in banking, is nothing to scoff at. Where did those ideas kind of pop up?
The story, I think, would be most interesting to start with where it's plugged into my mind. So as we briefly discussed in the beginning, that speaking with people in airplanes and airports is a little bit of my hobby, I would say. And even when I feel tired or sometimes I might feel depressed because you have to travel, you are leaving your family, you're going somewhere, you'll meet some strange people, and you are not always sure what will be there. You're not every time flying to vacation. This is what I would say.
Yeah.
And but then as said before, I try to put myself to the situation where in my mind I say, it's your time. Try to speak, make this journey a little bit more fun and interesting. And I was flying from Istanbul to Vienna to one conference, and there was a guy sitting next to me, and he was very friendly. We just started to chit chat. He was from robotics, and I was in banking at this time, and I was already in my mind having this idea that I need to make a sabbatical pause. So I will. My career grew very rapidly and fast. But I reached not only external but also internal ceilings in my head, and I thought I was 38 years old. It was 2 years ago. I'm 40 now. And I thought it's time when I need to take a pause, and I can and I should step back a little bit, breathe out, and see what's happening. So you cannot be always in a race. And I said, I was very long time in a very active race in banking. Growing my career, growing businesses, working in different countries, doing fantastic projects. And I need to say, I like banking.
Of course.
I love banking. So there is nothing in the banking which wouldn't interest me or almost which I wouldn't touch myself with my hands. And then we meet this guy, and he's the same but from robotics. And we start to speak. He asks me what is in banking. I tell him about all the problem, all the geopolitical, all the problems which are having banks right now because of the regulators. So my core thing. So. And then he tells me about robotics and also how this machine, why some robots are colored in yellow, some in blue.
Oh, okay.
It makes sense.
And
I forgot many of things. I still have my notes in my telephone. But and he tells me also what are the next steps in robotics, when the home cleaner will appear. And then he says, this is all interesting, but the most interesting thing what appeared just a couple of months ago is ChatGPT.
Okay.
And I say, so surprise me. Says, it's growing like, I don't know, at this time, like 5 million users a week or something. I say, okay,
insane.
This is cool, but for me, frankly speaking, this is, it doesn't really mean that this is a great thing. It means that people like it, but as they like it, they might stop liking it.
Of course.
And then I ask, but what can it do? So what is the value there? And then he tells me, this can generate things. And also he mentions and code. And this is where I think the neurons in my head started to talk to each other. For years, I was having this idea to learn Python.
Okay.
But as a banker, active banker, you never have time for this. And then I think, I am thinking to take a pause in my career and not to get rusty during this pause and to have a look what's happening in banking and to come back. I can spend some time on doing something. And this is where I thought, I will learn Python.
Nice.
I'll spend myself, and I was always thinking, should I go to some classes to find some teacher or go to some online courses? A lot of my friends did it, but I don't like the way how usually these courses are structured because they're not they're not practical enough for me.
It's very theoretical.
Usually, and
like isolated.
And they keep explaining you, like when you go to IT course, they would say right now, and I understand why. They would say, let's talk about IT architecture first. Yeah. So like you have a front end, a back end, you have a middleman in sometimes. This is where you have your database and you have different data. And then after half an hour, you listen to a lot of information and you haven't done yet anything.
No, that's it. Yeah.
And for me, it was always a little bit difficult. So you need to wait a lot until you're allowed to do something.
Like the goal is later.
Yeah. And with ChatGPT, I realized, I can surpass this. I can start myself from doing something. I don't need, and no one is watching at me. If I fail, I fail. But if I do, I can already generate some product. And this is where I came back. I bought my I had a more old computer at this time. I bought a new laptop at this time because I wanted to be sure that AI. I didn't know what does it mean to have AI GPT chatbot on my computer, and I wanted to be sure that it will work perfectly. That I will not lose any minutes, on additional downtime or waiting time when the server responds to something at this time. And then I started, and then I opened it and I understand I don't know what to ask. And this is what happened. I started to call my friends and saying, what should I ask?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's think together. Let's create a great project. And everybody said, Nick, are you insane?
Really?
Like, you're a banker. What are you asking? What kind of coding? What is a Python? Stop it. So if you want to have a pause, have your pause. Please don't.
Just relax, basically.
Yeah, just relax. Yeah, you deserve maybe some of holidays. Spend it with your family, with your wife, with the kids. So please. So you are not an Elon Musk. And I said, okay, that's your point of view.
Yeah.
And then I called somebody else. At some point, yes, I went to YouTube. I found these 35 lines of code, and this is where my journey started.
I love that.
And it started in a way. My family was not really happy at some point of time because I think after 1 week, it started from a hobby where I don't know, 1 hour, 2 hours a day, ask something. I actually very quickly realized what's a powerful tool I have in my hands.
Okay.
And then also using my business perspective, I realized how many things I can do myself here that I actually started to work. I was waking up in the morning, bringing kids to school or kindergarten, then opening laptop at 9, 10 a.m. in the morning, and 10 p.m. in the evening, and I'm not joking, every day for a period around like 5-6 months. I was doing this daily, and I was coding and coding. At first, it was just copy paste. Very soon, my code grew to more than 200 lines, and at this time, I think already 200 lines was not possible to give to ChatGPT and to get the answer. Yeah. So this is where I came to an idea. Okay, now I need to learn coding, not only asking proper questions to ChatGPT, but I need to understand what is written here. And then, like 3 or 4 months later, I started to code myself, and I started to have a fight with ChatGPT because my front end, for example, was and for my first projects on Telegram, and they have some libraries which were updated after the latest release of ChatGPT at this time. Of course, yeah. And then, like for example, Iogram, there is a wonderful library which supports asynchronous approach in functions execution, and Iogram 3 Plus chatbot didn't know about it. It knew everything about it, and the logic, the way how you speak with this library differed greatly in some parts. Yeah, newer version. And this is where I even had to go to the source library. I think this is how it's called. Or some you know this better. So I had to find the original description of this library, and then actually to make myself the code, only asking some things from ChatGPT. And when he was giving me, I was saying, no. Right now, this function cannot be. Yeah, that's not it anymore. Cannot be called like this. This tool is not available anymore in this new library. And so from a technological point of view, I think this is this was my path. Again,
interesting. I mean, you started 2 years ago with this dream of, okay, I'm going to do this, and you actually have done that so far.
Yeah.
I think back when I saw ChatGPT, first and foremost, there was this whole doom and gloom scenario that our jobs are going to be worthless, basically, because it can generate anything, code included. And now when you've played around with it, you already hit against some of the limitations, right? And those limitations are constantly being accommodated for. When there's a new major release, then it's basically a snapshot of history. And when new libraries or new major versions come out, it doesn't have the knowledge of what is current. It has the knowledge of kind of the history that it's built upon. So that's already one of the limitations. But kind of going into what you know now, where do you see ChatGPT? I've also never met someone that has started their programming journey with ChatGPT already out there, which is very new and very recent.
The ChatGPT, I think it's a great and wonderful tool what they've done, and I'm personally much thankful to OpenAI.
Yeah,
and also from the point of view how they approach this area, because before they did it, and I also I studied how they're arranged. They have these two funds which are sort of independent, that the investors, the financial investors, cannot affect on decisions of OpenAI. The way how they bring this to people, and I think they did a very important present. I don't want to be very general and to sound how to say this,
like idealistic,
but inside my heart, I genuinely believe that they gave a present to the humanity, which humanity will realize within some time. So effectively, what they did, they took from big corporates, which usually right now control the technology development. They took it from them and they gave it to people, and allowed people at a very low costs, at almost no limits and barriers, to test and try. And then it's only the question to your creativity.
Yeah.
And for me, it was very clear in the beginning when I had this first code, I understood that there are no limits in how I can use it. Limits mostly in my head and also in my can-do attitude. So right now I have some people who try to follow my example. So I have my friends who now follow in my path for last 2 years.
Okay.
And they also come and say, hey, Nick, can we do this together as well? And I say, yes, but you are coding yourself. And I will explain you how you should use ChatGPT and other. So I will explain you my path, because I want to share this with you. You will learn it from your angle.
Yeah.
Definitely you will know different things, which even I didn't pick up, because we are using our brain to dive into this area. And even if two people speak into ChatGPT about the same thing, they will most likely get at least 10 to 20% different information.
Yeah.
Not because ChatGPT hallucinates or whatsoever, because the way how we ask questions and how we digest information would be different, even if it's my close friend or the colleague with whom I worked for many, many years.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing right now, I'm also sharing this with people, with my friends. I have a couple of projects which are doing together. So, and my friend, one of my school friends, he was complaining, saying, yeah, but I'm not a coder. Let's do the following. You will code and I will just tell you. So no. So this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
I explain you how you use ChatGPT. I explain you where you can watch some YouTube videos if you have a problem. And then you reach to this point when the product is deployed. And then you come back and we discuss again. And people complaining about this a little bit. But after some months, I see how inspired they become.
Yeah.
Because we start to discuss problems of architecture, of cloud architecture. And the person says, yeah, but I'm just a school teacher. I would never expect myself to know these words now. And I think this is a big thing which ChatGPT brings us.
Interesting.
And this role should remain. So answering your question, what's coming next? I don't see ChatGPT as a like a utility. It's more. It's it's a source of information, which, by the way, is not always correct at the last instance.
Yeah.
But it gives you a very solid parts and blocks of information which you might be missing in the way that you can digest. Because every time you generate the question, and when you get the answer, it is tailored for your answer, tailored for your question. And that's why you can learn, I think, from ChatGPT much faster. You cannot learn everything from ChatGPT, but in my case, and in case of people with whom I wouldn't say consult, I'm sharing this knowledge. It gives like 60% of information which you need to develop your own projects easily.
Yeah.
40% you need to gain yourself. You need to speak to people, you need to go to conferences, so you need to be active, proactive. Can-do attitude is extremely important. My favorite thing is that when we start sometimes the project, we discuss, so let's do this and this, and then, yeah, but this is impossible. And say, yes, this is impossible. And this is why it's so interesting. It's impossible not because it's, against physics law. It's impossible only because we don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And it means if we don't know how to do it, we can understand, we can get this information, and then it will become possible.
I really admire that can-do attitude. And I was actually thinking back to a conversation I had a few days ago, because from Xivia, we get time to share knowledge. We get a few hours off consultancy. And I started a project which is basically like Splitwise. Splitwise, you start a group, you do payments, and then eventually you can split the bill of all the payments you've done. And I've used it on many holidays. It's very nice. But currency conversion, it doesn't do. It has some limitations. So I thought, okay, let me build it myself. It's fun. I'll try out a new technology. And I usually don't do that. So I found people that are really good at starting, better than me. So I get an easier kind of job starting. But already then we talked about kind of database migrations and schemas and kind of the essence of it. We haven't actually started. I feel like this skill of executing and not actually just leaving your ideas to rest is becoming more and more important. And I was having this chat with one of my friends, and he says, I have many ideas, but then I think of the feasibility of those ideas. And if I don't think they're feasible, or if I see competition has already had a big market share, then I don't execute on those ideas whatsoever. And then I don't end up executing at all, actually, because I haven't found an idea that I think is worth executing. And I have a hard time starting. I have many ideas. I don't have the same limitation where I think of feasibility, yet I don't execute. And then I see people like you and more people pop up that really hone their craft in executing and doing many projects and learning on the fly. And I think that's fascinating.
Thank you. Thank you for this, but it also comes, of course, with a price. First of all, it's very interesting how one of my colleagues, Benno, he called it, when I told him it was one of my early introductions, some people introduced me to this wonderful guy. And he is for a long time in VC area, in venture capital.
Yeah.
And I told him, look, Benno, what do you do? And they say, I cannot tell you what I do because I'm not doing one thing. I'm running in parallel the project, on retail market. I have this chatbot, which is now used by tens of thousands of people, and it's keeping growing, like 4,000 per month. I have an AI tutor to help originally my daughter to pass her exams in order for her to have additional tutor to the real human beings, which can speak with her 24/7 if she needed. I'm also at this time, I'm having this personalization marketing tool, which I developed, like a best offer, which is defined by AI based on your previous correspondence. I'm having this idea of building a chatbots for websites just instantly within minutes, not paying for development and waiting weeks and months.
Yeah.
And then he says, yeah, okay, Nick. So this is called a spaghetti approach.
Is it?
I say, okay, what is this? And he says, this spaghetti approach is when you take spaghetti out of a plate, throw it to the wall.
And see what sticks.
And see what sticks.
Yeah.
What falls, that falls. What sticks, that sticks. And you carry on this. And this is one way to do to formulate this. Another one, again, I get some inspirations in my life. I read the history of all key developers in this world and sometimes, many times, I was rereading. Yeah, of course, like Steve Jobs is I was personally upset when he died, because I realized that there is no chance in my life to meet him in person.
Yeah.
And until he was alive, I had this feeling that, we are from, even I was in banking, but I was reading about him a lot. Because you can see in the product, when you hold the product, you can see the person behind it. And if you see how the product evolves, and especially when you're from industry, like I was connected also from banking to production, how difficult it is to create such things.
Yeah.
You have gazillions of people whom you need to explain what they should do. You need to control this. And for me, of course, everything goes with in Apple with Steve Jobs, and with the team which he was able to assemble. There is this theory about A and B people, which we can speak a little bit later. But another example would be Leonardo da Vinci. So I was, we all know he is so brilliant, etc. But then I once read and then listened again about him a podcast, and it was during the time when I having this spaghetti approach, when I realized, he was also having a spaghetti approach. Because if you go through all the things which he was doing, he succeeded only in 10% of, he finished like 10% of his projects.
Yeah.
There is enormous amount of things which he started, he tried it, and it was not bad projects. He just at some point of time reprioritized. He said, I'm doing this 16 Capella. I think he even did it twice.
Wow.
In his, he was stopping and then coming back after some time. And I think when you're developing something, it's a good approach. Looking again a little bit of my example and resonating, what I'm saying, I lived all this not only from positive side, that it sounds so bright and wonderful, but also from negative side. I had idea of this news aggregator in my mind, and this is where I get deeper to AI, to embeddings. You know, embeddings is a fantastic topic, so which is extremely hard to understand if you are not technical guy.
Yeah.
Myself, and I'm open to say this, it took me, I think, more than a month just to digest the concept of 1,000-dimensional universe and multi-universe cooperation, which is happening inside embeddings. After I sort of understood it, I said, okay, now I need to test and try. And I, again, looked up myself. I was already coding and said, I will write a wonderful tool. I will create a news aggregator.
Yeah.
It will read all the news with the help of OpenAI and their API. I can vectorize almost everything in this world, all the information in the real time. And I will aggregate the news. I will understand that the same news is published here in Netherlands, in Germany, in Switzerland, in China, wherever. And I will understand what are the similarities between these news and differences. And then I had idea that GPT, another GPT agent will come and will rewrite this news in a comprehensive manner, keeping only most important information, take it out bias, eliminate manipulation, etc. I tried to do it myself. I did it myself, but I looked up like for 3 months. It was extremely difficult, and I had this feeling, I need to be faster. And then January this year, I stop. I say, now the product is live.
Okay.
And there are several disappointments there. First of all, no one needs it because no one knows about it. And for me to bring it to people, it takes even much more effort than to develop, especially when I'm alone.
Yeah.
The second thing, together with me, there were multiple teams running the same way, and they were not bankers who learned coding. They were data engineers, they were machine learning specialists, they were programmers for 20 plus years, and there were multiple teams, and they were developing the same product I was developing, but in their view.
Yeah.
And this is where I again realized that it's very important to do things faster, to bring, and if you're building not a project for yourself, but a product which should be available on the market, you need to bring it to the market as fast as possible, because most likely while you're doing this, you will lose some time. The second thing is always team up. Find people, find partners, because this will save a lot of time. There are smart and wonderful people. Maybe if you discuss with them, they would like to join you. And then together you can do it not even 2 times faster, but 3-5 times faster. And I learned this lesson with this project, which I had. It's still, it's a wonderful project. Everybody who looked at it says it's wow, it's so cool, but it's not popular at the moment. And I understand what needs to be done further to improve it. But for me, the most and the biggest value from that project was not only knowing, the first one would be knowing about vectorization. Now I use it in many other projects, and this is a fantastic tool within AI universe. But the other thing is I understood I need to team up, and this is where I came outside and I started to grow faster my social network in technology, and I started to invite partners. And when I speak to potential partners, for me, this can-do attitude is extremely important.
Of course.
We discuss, and then one of the great guys with whom I work, he says, we are partners, we're equal. We know every project which we do, we say we're even here. And I like a lot what he says. He always I says, look, can we do this and that? And he says, yes, we can, but I don't know how yet. And this is for me every time fantastic. I said, Robert, you are great. Like, because this is also my approach. If it's theoretically not contradicting physics law, yes, we can. But the only thing, I just don't know. And it means that I will invest my time. I will speak to people. I will get this knowledge. I will test and try, and I will get to this point.
Speed is, and especially nowadays, kind of the name of the game in the industry, from what I've seen. And because that is so, a friend of mine recommended this podcast episode with Lex Friedman. It's very recent. And this Dutch guy called Peter Levels. I was checking it out actually before our conversation, and I still have to listen through this full conversation, that podcast episode. But I followed the guy on Twitter actually quite a lot. He was one of the first people that I saw actually apply AI in a piece of software that he built. This was before ChatGPT came out. You could take a picture of your living room, and you could basically, with AI, he could have a different style of living room for you.
Cool.
Right? The furniture would rearrange. You could say, okay, I want it in a Western style. And you would actually see that style applied. And I played around with it when it just got live. I don't know how, but somewhere through Reddit maybe, I came upon it. And I immediately showed it to my friends, and we thought, okay, this is really cool. Within a week, there was a paywall. You could only do it within a few days, or you could only have so many attempts in a day, and then you would have to pay. And he expanded on it. And I think he did that by having something live. It was already very tangible. It worked, basically. Super simple idea. Take a picture of your living room. It's a redecorator. You don't have to have a person that says, okay, you can do it in this style. You can just play around with it, and you see the result. And then all of a sudden, you had to pay for it. And it worked. People paid for it because they were like, okay, it was working before, or I heard about it, and now I have to pay. Okay, I'll do it. I want actually see if this works out. And apparently, he's built up many projects. Out of 100 projects, he's built out 95% never actually made it because the idea wasn't feasible, or people didn't want to spend their money on that idea. And only, he says, when people actually want to put their money down is when your idea is feasible. And those 5 ideas that he had, one of them was the one I explained. There's 4 more, are very interesting. And then I listened, because this is what my friend told me. Actually, further down the episode, he's going to break down technology-wise how he does it. And everything is super bare bones. Everything is from like a technology of 15 years ago, because he's super effective at it. And he can go faster than anyone else with those technologies, right? If you're most comfortable with that technology, then you go really fast. You can test your assumptions really quickly. And I'm like, comparing that to what we use nowadays, especially like Xeria as a consultancy organization, we make a lot of enterprise-grade software, but that also requires a certain level of risk appetite, right? Companies don't want their software to be risky. The risk appetite is usually very much lower because of branding, because of image. It needs to be resilient software. And with that level of quality, you have to have a bigger time investment. And then I compare that to this one guy who lives not even in a home base in the Netherlands anymore. He lives in Portugal. He's lived in 150 countries on his couch, creating projects, developing software, and going way faster than companies can. I'm like, man, should that be the way to go when you're actually developing your ideas and your startups? I feel like it should be, because speed really matters, apparently.
Yeah, I totally agree. Speed matters a lot. And again, this is from the example which you gave, that a person came to this idea that you need to develop it as fast as possible. Mm-hmm. Also from projects which I was doing. There are two things which are popping up in my mind in this regard. The first one, I would like also to share the life hack which I recently got from one of, you can say this is a professor from IMD, and I met with him for coffee. And IMD is a business school in Switzerland, in Lausanne, mm-hmm. and a great guy, Jim, and we had a coffee. And I told him, look, Jim, I have this idea of instant development of chatbots, of web advisors. And I already know that it's possible to do, that it can be developed, any chatbot right now. Me and my partner, we can develop within 2 up to 10 minutes, just using the information from the website. And we can teach the model simultaneously how to answer the questions, so we can make hallucination as limited as possible. We can make it very peculiar, and it would actually replace the person. And but we're still in final stage. And I said, look, my plan is the following. I want to go very fast. And tell me, what do you mean in the fast? And I said, it was in end of July, this discussion this year. Yeah. And he said, so tell me what is fast. And I said, fast for me is the following, that 8th of August, we finalize the product, beta tests, so it's full live. We plumb it, we bring it to the market, we share it on all social media. I spend my money on bringing this to people. We have our first 100 clients, and together with first 100 clients, I go to investors and I propose them to bring something up to 1 million, and we spend it exclusively on the marketing, because we need to also to make sure that this will be used by people and they need it. Mm-hmm. And then he said, no, this is very slow. And I said, but why? And he told me a very good thing, which I think a lot of guys who are developing tech projects right now and want to do products should use. So he told me, do the marketing before the product. Don't wait until it's done. You can actually build a marketing campaign right now, having it $200 in your pocket, with the help of Meta and Google Ads. And you can just simply make a market fit test before you spend all your time and effort on building the project, and even on raising funds from investors, and then reporting to these investors, and then going via all these pivots and circles, which you will have to go anyway. And I liked his idea. I don't think that he expected me to be that quick, but within 1 week, I started this campaign in Meta and in Google. Mm-hmm. And within 3 weeks, we already knew in which countries this product is needed. Yeah. And this gave us, and also it gave us insight on how much cost one client. We have shown our ad to 1.5 million of people in 4 countries. We have measured the click-through rate. And then it was all leading to our landing page website, where we were describing that we are in early stage, and this is what you will get as soon as we will finish. So leave us contact details, and as soon as it's done, we will share with you your robot, and then you can create these chatbots instantly on our portal. Mm-hmm. But all of this was done, and we have tested this idea much before we actually developed the finalized idea. And I think this is one of the, again, life hacks which developers should use. Mm-hmm. It costed me a little bit more than 200. Because, again, I wanted to go to a slightly bigger scale. So, but yeah, within a couple of grants, you can run a real marketing campaign, and you can understand, is your product needed anywhere in the world or not?
Yeah, which is a must.
Yeah.
I mean, before building, if you can get those insights, for me, this is interesting, right? Because I see people create these ideas, and all of a sudden, your business background becomes very relevant. And you also have the marketing, because you need to understand what market you're in and if there's an actual need for it. And then you also need the execution skills, more so on the software development, because you actually have to create something that is able to go live and might be able to go evolve. And you need to be able to understand what bugs might pop up and be able to fix it, because customers are customers and customers need to be happy. Otherwise, your product is just doomed with how social media nowadays can kind of transfer in reputation and brand. So it's a whole lot that you need to understand. That's why I really like that you said, okay, pair up with people that have knowledge of certain domains. You can do it together. I think that is great advice. And you can also amp each other up with this can-do attitude. Yet still, it feels like you need a lot of skills in one basket to actually succeed in the end.
Yeah, and chemistry. With this teaming up, again, in my life and in banking, I was responsible for building teams.
Yeah.
And right now, I gave myself even a harder task. I decided to build a team not of my team, but team of partners. So people who are much cleverer, smarter, and even more capable in certain areas than I am. And that we work together on projects driven by idea. And together such teams, it's much more difficult. Because even now, people sometimes they come and they say, "Yeah, can we work together? But I would like to have a salary. I would like to have a paycheck. So can we agree that like I'm ready to bring all my effort?" And which is very true. A lot of smart and bright people, but with such attitude, when you, it's for me, it's always a question that you have to bring something before you take something. And with all the partners and my good friends with whom we could create something together, it was exactly the opposite. At first, we, exactly like I said, that we bring something into, and none of us ask anything for the return.
Yeah.
And then we see what we have already done together. We think what we can do further. And from this we move. It's not that, I think especially on the early stage, people like to, and I had this also multiple times, when you have a group of guys and say, "Oh, we have this wonderful idea. Oh yeah, this will be a unicorn." Yeah. And then people already start, "Yeah, I want to have 30% of shares of this unicorn."
It starts.
And they start to divide things and split things which do not exist. And they very fast in these cases become demotivated because, as you said, I think you even put it very mildly, any product has bugs. There is no possibility. I don't believe that there are coders, programmers, or anyone who can deliver the product from the first hand without any errors, without any bugs. Is it a bug or a feature sometimes? My favorite part. My favorite part is this demos, when everything works and then you come to your first client or a friend or whoever and say, "This is wonderful, this is how it works," and say, "Wow, fantastic." Yes, you can look, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah, a beautiful demo effect.
With my chatbot, I had this even in front of my group, London Business School group. I sent to them, "Look, I started to code, I developed this chatbot," and said, "Oh yeah," and then I sent the link, and then again my lessons learned. So when I sent the link, they asked me something that, color could be different, and I thought to myself, "Oh yeah, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. The color," and I immediately changed the color in the prom version, and accidentally I broke something, and then the whole bot just stopped us. And then 50 people, they open and say, "Nick," actually one of them or two told me that it doesn't work. All the others just
left.
and you have to go via. So you need to learn the lesson: never do changes in prom version, and better release the new rollouts during night.
Yeah.
So when you have less users, never do anything ad hoc. Try to do some tests before you are certain and you're sure that this is how it should work. If you want, I can tell another example of.
I have one question before we get into that, because you mentioned people coming together and already talking about kind of the slice of the pie.
Yeah.
That is this product, how many shares or what have you. I've seen people, and they were really good friends of mine, go into business together. And I learned this very late because we didn't stay in touch. COVID happened. I'm really bad at staying in touch with some people. But I had dinner with one of the guys and he said, we actually started the business, me and the other friend. Basically, it was the three of us going into uni. And he said it went really well. And then we had a decision on how to expand. And he basically said, it's going to be this way. And the other guy didn't agree. And he said, it's going to be this way. Otherwise, I'm going to stop, basically.
Yeah.
Like very much my way or the highway, to a point where the other guy just said, okay, just buy me out and I'll leave. And I'm like, man, these guys were really good friends. I was part of that same friend group. It's a shame to see that happen. I said, are you still friends with him? He says, absolutely not. Like I felt stabbed in the back, basically.
Yeah.
So from this story where friends start up something and it fails, I've heard that multiple times kind of on this podcast or off this podcast. And it makes sense then that people kind of defend themselves and say, okay, this is kind of the arrangement. You have a way bigger business background than I have. So how do you figure out kind of the minimum requirements to actually start operating? Or should there be anything from your view? Or how do you then team up with people to make sure that doesn't happen?
It's a very interesting combination, which I came across again within examining the examples of good companies and failed companies. And I think it's very interesting. At least I shared it with some people, and they said, "Yeah, this is something we should have known before we started our startup." You need to be both. You need to, when you start thing, and especially you are in the position of the founder, one of founders, you need to be on the one side very trustworthy yourself. Also put a lot of trust into your partners. So it should be unconditional trust in order to go together. And that's why this can-do attitude. That's why for me it's always, and I think for all the successful, which I know companies and the projects which I know about, it was always we trust that each of us would bring the best which we could into the project.
Yeah.
But the other side should be, unfortunately, very corporate. So you should, from the day one, you should agree who is doing what in the company and who is the leader and final decision maker. So, and it's coming a lot from management. This is something which they teach in every business school. Like, I'm trying to remember any good comparison example, but maybe it would be like when people try to survive and on the boat in the ocean, and how they behave, how they split the resources, what they do, how they arrange their routine. So this is a startup effectively, yeah. So if you're in the middle of the ocean, and you have limited resources, you have absolute uncertainty around you. The worst thing which can happen that everybody has their own opinion on what they should do. In this situation, chances for everyone to die extremely high. And I will not bring right now a lot of statistics, but I'm sure that everyone can Google and check. And this is the usual conclusion. So starting with all the trust, with all the respect to each other, you should always agree, okay, within our team, we're all equals, but strategic decisions, how we behave, how we do, is under this guy. And I have some projects where I have to lead. I have some projects where I said, I step out. I take from this leading position, I take this, I have an interesting project where I have a risk control role, which I think I'm doing perfectly. But we have another guy who is really responsible for direction where we go. And for me, it's nothing about ego or having my own vision. I have my own vision.
Yeah.
But in our startup, in that particular project, we have agreed that he's the boss and two other guys. We all have three of us who are doing something, and we all have our area of control and competence. But all the decisions, final decisions, should be taken by one guy. And then we can do it. In other projects, it's a different. This is where I say, guys, I know that you are maybe smarter than me here. But look, this is a project where I think we need to give a leading role to me. And I will guide us through, using all my knowledge, through all the problems. But we should not have a situation. A friend of mine from Lisbon called me. Recently, I started my blog as well. I like to share some knowledge, some ideas which I have, and practical knowledge. And he signed up in Telegram, and then he said, "Oh, Nick, you're doing this." So he called me and appeared that he's also in startup area. They made some several rounds already of fundraising for the project. It's blockchain related. So they started like 4 years ago or something. And he told me that one of the biggest problem they have, that in the beginning they have agreed that there is one guy who is CEO, but they also said, despite he is CEO, every of us have 25% voting rights.
Oh yeah, equal divide.
And he says we're in a deadlock. For last 2 years, and blockchain had its rise and it had its falls, and right now it's a very difficult area, especially when you have funds from investors and you need to deliver something.
Oh yeah,
you need to not to pivot. You need to spin around like a crazy to find a way how to deploy your idea in the reality. And these guys, he said, we cannot do anything.
You can't move then.
Yeah, because every time we try together and they say, yeah, everyone have a right to vote, every one of us. And that's why, if you have an idea, persuade other three guys, there are 4 people, as I remember, persuade other 3 people that this is a good idea. And then everybody is coming from their angle. And then, such startups will not fly. And this is, again, doesn't matter, is it a startup, is it a large corporate, no matter how you trust each other and you value each other relationship, you always should have somebody who is a leader, and otherwise other people should trust him and give him this responsibility.
How do you do that then? Because you said in some projects you have this leadership role, right? And you fought for it, and probably you have that then there. But in other projects,
I suggested. I didn't never fight. It's always
suggested, but in the end, it resulted in you having that position.
Yeah.
And for other projects, you don't have it, right? But you still. I mean, I would put myself in that situation, and I love challenging things. I love ideas, but I also love even more decision making and executing.
Yeah.
So I could have it with me. I could have it with someone else. But if it is with someone else, I'm going to be very sharp and I'm going to be very vigilant to still make sure that we're doing the right thing, right? And if we fail, I'm not going to challenge the decision that was made, but I will make sure that we reflect and we learn from those mistakes, because otherwise it's useless making mistakes.
Absolutely.
So then I would be a bit more vigilant in those positions. And because I haven't done that, I'm not sure if I were to be able to let go in that way. How do you do that with not having the leadership position that's in the other projects compared to the one where you do have it?
I think this is where we are coming to the area of ego. And this is what a lot of smart people have a problem with. And I also had. I think I don't have much more problem with this. So when you understand that you can deliver things, when you have this feeling, it's one of the problems of this is coming from behavioral economy even. I'm taking a lot of my backpack of banking and finance and economy. So you have there this even it's a part of a science of behavioral economy, where you try to predict what's happening to the market based on how individuals within this market behave. And there you have some biases, like hot hand bias. Like for example, if the person is a basketball player, is hitting 5-time 3 score, what would you say? What is the probability of him getting the score 6 times, getting the 3 score 6th time in a row?
Yeah, it depends how you do probability. If he's on fire, it's likely. But if I look at it from a probability standpoint, the probability is less and less.
Yeah.
The more he does it back to back.
So, but what would you say that would you bet that you see he's definitely on fire? Like,
Yeah.
everybody says, wow, and he's scoring, and then comes the pivotal moment. It should be number 6. Would you say he hits this score?
And my optimist side would say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But likely it's not the truth.
And the second part is more correct.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no such thing as a hot hand. There is indeed some preconditions which led to the situation that he won. And they can affect partially that he will hit the next one. So for example, like defense line will be depressed because they saw him already several times hitting the score, scoring, and they will be depressed because they think, oh yeah, again. But if they're not depressed, it means it's a new situation from zero, and there shouldn't be such thing as a being on fire. And we're now like coming to the people who are trying to develop and things. Sometimes we fall into this bias. We think, oh, we succeeded in this small project, or we succeeded in this big project, or we made such a wonderful career there. First of all, we are awesome. We are uncopyable. Yeah, so we are on fire. We are on fire. We are irreplaceable, etc. And with the life circle, I think it's very important at some point to stop yourself and to say, why am I thinking so? What is really happening on this basketball match? How do I still see the defense line, these people? Do I still see my partners? Maybe my team has changed already and there are much stronger guys next to me, and I shouldn't be scoring. I should give a pass to them because the other team is also developing.
Yeah.
And many people, and I think it's also connected with the age. So from this 30 to 40 years, this is where usually all people are on fire. So we already have knowledge, we have ability, and we have a lot of life power to deliver this. And this is where people think, yeah, I'm unstoppable. I can do everything. But all of people who want to develop things, we think that this is coming because we are so unique. And I think it's very important from time to time to stop and to ask yourself, what is happening around you? Never think that you are unique. Never think that you are on fire, because on fire doesn't exist. It was previously conditions which led to your success. Try to understand these conditions and try to multiply them and bring them into your new projects. Don't think that just popping up somewhere you will do this. And this is what comes with the teams and projects. From my view, and this is why for me it's not a problem. I think I've been to different teams where I was sometimes forced to go to the position of not a front line. Sometimes I was forced to go to the front line when indeed I was resisting. I was saying, I don't want to be a leader of this.
It's not you.
And then I was, no, it's you. You are taking the responsibility and decisions also. And all of this brought me to this understanding. Every time when you meet with people, you try, maybe it's like a consulting, even from this point of view. You try to assess the project. You try to assess people, team, and assess it independently. Like step outside and look at yourself also independently. Evaluate you versus others. And then if you want to show off and to show that your ego is, and you are the number one, then of course it wouldn't be possible to take the second and third role. But if you can step out and say, okay, my target, I really want to build Unicorn. I know that on the way to Unicorn, like I can see this, I can foresee this, but the Unicorn is even behind this wall. So we can't even see, because there are a lot of things hidden. We need a people of certain skills. And I need to have in my team together with me people who would be able to help me and the team to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And if it means that I should step down, then it's fine. If it means that I should, even I don't want, many people also come into another conclusion that it's good to have, like 5% shareholder. And I had this as well. So when people were coming to me and saying, look, we want to help, we want to brainstorm with you, but we don't want to take any responsibility. So in a way, so like, let us be just a minor shareholder there, and we'll see. So like, I'm not risking anything.
No,
if
it's like schmuck insurance.
Yeah,
I've heard it called
schmuck insurance.
Yeah.
And for me, I in the beginning I was even considering, but then I said, no, guys, we're not flying anywhere because it's not the way you need to be every time when you do something. And it's also I'm speaking. I think that it's important to mention it's not only about startups. I think it's about everything. Any project, and in banking it works the same way. If you want to succeed in banking in your career, it's the same like succeed in startup and building a big company, maybe not a unicorn, but a big one. You need to put your skin into the game, and you need to have this can-do attitude, and you need to focus on the result, not on yourself.
Yeah.
So if you can do this, then you will get a lot of good experience, and even if you don't succeed, you will reuse this experience further. But as you said, I also see this, and this is very, very cool to see young guys with whom I meet sometimes. I speak, and recently I also I'm meeting now a lot of people, and we discuss their ideas, because my thing is the following: I have no secrets. I share all my ideas.
Yeah.
And if somebody want to take it, I say take it, because first of all, most likely you will call me as well to be your partner there. Because,
that's good.
And the second of all, even if we'll do it in parallel, we'll do a different project.
Yeah.
And when I share with you, you share also with me, and maybe it will lead me to some ideas which I didn't think of. So that's why I don't understand people actually who are saying, I have a lot of ideas, and especially in banking, I have a lot of ideas, but
hush hush.
And they say, what? No, I don't. So can we discuss? Like, but I even had situations when people were saying, let's sign NDA.
Oh, really? From the get-go?
Yeah.
That's quick.
When I say, okay. But actually, for me, it's also not a problem. I'm not going to share this idea with anyone.
Yeah.
But I was also trying to explain to these guys that you don't think that you are the smartest. Even you were a couple of times before. Even you think that your idea can be stolen.
Yeah.
It's not. And moreover, to succeed right now, especially with new projects, you need to acquire as fast as possible as many talented people to you as possible. And this is not possible without sharing.
Yeah.
Start speaking. And then some people would come to you and say, let's do this together. I can help you.
I really love that perspective. I think I never realized that like having a hot streak or being on fire is actually just BS. And you have to objectively look at, okay, how did that factor into where your success was? And are the circumstances the same, right? Because you start from scratch every single time. I do understand that if you have that over and over and over again, it can really feed into this ego that you are basically number one and that you should be in that leadership position. And I really like that you keep a look at it objectively and see where it's a good fit and see where it's not a good fit, and keep it to that. I don't know if it's my upbringing, but I always was raised to be humble, which is also why that probably feeds into imposter syndrome. When things are going well, I'm like, oh, it's probably luck, or it wasn't really my factor in there. So that's maybe the flip side of it. But I have worked with people that do really think that they're the best. And from my standpoint, I can see where they're really good, but I can still see those flaws. And that is really hard to work with. If you have a group with, let's say, all people that want to be number one, then competition is fierce and decisions cannot be made because everyone wants their decision to win. And when you have your standpoint with not ego involved at all, I think that's very productive, because then you can objectively just have a discussion on the essence rather than on the ego.
Yeah. And also you're bringing perspective of what can go wrong, what can go good.
Yeah.
And then it's not that you're fighting with some, John. He's having his point of view, you're having yours, and then you're fighting with each other. Every time you're doing this because you want to succeed in the project or in the company.
Yeah.
And we're coming again back to that chemistry, right people. So you should trust. You know, there is a difference between trust and respect. So Itzhak Adizes, one of professors from, I think he's Harvard professor.
Okay.
He didn't invent it, but he formulated this very, very well, that respect is when you allow a person to have his own opinion, and trust is when you believe that your interests are in the heart of the other person. And building a project, building a team, building whatever together requires not respect. It requires trust. So respect means that everybody is inside their bubble.
Yeah.
And we respect that you're in your bubble, I'm in your, but this is not enough to build something. You need to have trust in each other. I need to wake up in the morning and I know that if I'm doing a project with Patrick, thoughts of my prosperity, of my success, part of Patrick's thoughts, as well as my thoughts are about how to make Patrick successful, and then we can have a fight on anything. We can say no, your idea is ridiculous. No, but then we're sharing that we're doing this because we are running to the same direction, not because we are fighting with each other.
Yeah, that makes me think of. Then also the cause of why many teams fail is just because of this partially ego and just, I think, also human nature of greed, because it's always going to be there. Like those discussions of really trusting each other and having each other's best interests at heart, I think that's perfect. When that is not the case, greed pops up, or you might be suspicious or skeptical, and then it all comes spiraling down. And people that are friends, like that's where I feel like it hurts the most. You have that feeling of trust, right? Because you've been friends before. But then actually financial incentives come in
by default,
and greed pops out, and you're like, yeah, that's the hard part.
And that's why I think to agree from the day one is very important.
Yeah, I really like that.
And you could also agree and say that decisions that are taken this way, and financially in whatever we do, everybody take, I don't know, 10%, and then Patrick take 70%. And people should sign off this from the day one. And then it also sorts the issue that later on when something pops up, you're not trying to say, yeah, but we had this, and the situation can be that, yeah, I agreed to this 10%, but I thought I would have 50, and now it's developing only because of me.
Yeah.
And this is where also the leadership role comes. And there should be always this guy, a person who is responsible and says, no, guys, I'm like a safeguard of our agreement. And this is what we have agreed. And this is why we're doing this. It might be we're coming to the situation that it doesn't work, doesn't fly anymore. Then, okay, let's reevaluate what we're doing together. So our project is developing or not developing. And then it's also very easy to find the way, as you said, to buy out or not to buy out, or to rearrange and re-agree, because this is also, nothing is set in stone. There can be at some point of time that one team member indeed becomes so valuable and important and he's pushing everything. But if we all have trust in our hearts between the partners, everybody would say, yeah, like Mac right now, yeah, or Michael right now is actually pushing us further. So it's fair because again, we trust.
Yeah.
And we are also controlled by the manager. So you have to have this combination, yeah, of emotional and also bureaucratical. And then it takes away all the problems, or majority of problems. And what also I have seen, and this correlates with what you are saying, that sometimes people don't even pronounce things, but they think, and they spend their valuable resources of thinking of these greedy things, like
doom thinking.
Yeah, I'm doing this. I'm and why I'm not. And then for years, and then people actually die from inside.
Yeah, it festers.
And again, for me, this is one of important things, not only trust and clear agreement, but also of the leader in any team, to see that with this guy or with this girl, something is happening wrong. And there is something happening in the mind, and it's better to speak out and to help to close it.
Clear the air, yeah.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, Nick, I must say.
Thank you.
From your journey of starting with software development, rapid AI prototyping, and a lot of insights in team building and how you can create chemistry. Before we round off, is there anything you still want to share?
One thing which I think I would like people who will listen to this will hear is that, and you covered this, but there is also sort of perspective which I found out recently. Start learning new things, and I hope that somebody who is not coding will listen to us. Start coding as soon as possible. I was listening to one of the podcasts about, again, ancient times, how the writing appeared and when it appeared. So it's assumed that I think like 2,000+ years ago by Sumer civilization, and they were using commas and some non-alphabetic way of writing. And at this time, writing was craft. Actually, you would have a farmer, you would have a warrior, you would have a tax guy, you would have somebody who is doing ceramics, etc., and you would have a guy who is writing.
Yeah, scribe.
And for many time, it was a unique craft, a unique skill, which people were learning, and this was their part of their work. And I see this as a lot of similarity with what's happening right now with coding. I think coding is the same as writing back 2,000 years ago. Right now, there are still limited number of people who know what the Python is, how to structure the code, how to write it. But I have this feeling when I was listening to this podcast, I had this idea and the feeling that actually we are going the same direction. Right now, everybody knows alphabet or any or other types of writing. So we all can write by default since we go to school.
Yeah.
We are taught to do this. And I think with coding will happen the same. So in some time, hopefully not in thousands of years, there will be a situation that everybody would learn maybe Python or similar or any other language as a second or third language. And this would be just obvious that you speak English and also you speak Python. And then when Patrick asks me like, okay, Nick, when do we have our podcast? I would reply something like rand 7, which means that pick any day from the week, and we don't, and it's so much more efficient if we use this also as a language, and this brings a lot of possibilities. So right now, what I also my experience gave me that you can learn coding very quickly if you're consistent and if you really ask questions and you have some idea in your head. And then it brings you so much interesting creative power. You can create products, projects, you can create your own private chatbots. AI is important aspect here. Or you can wake up in the morning and say, I will be the next Elon Musk. And I will develop Twitter. It's not a rocket science right now. You just need to write a certain amount of code. You need to understand certain architecture. You need to know about certain protection and the control of the flows. But this is not the knowledge which is unreachable. This is very reachable knowledge.
Yeah, it's out there.
And if you have this in mind, and before that you were a banker or a lawyer, or I met some consultants who told me as well that we don't code, we don't touch it.
Okay.
And say, but do it.
Yeah.
Try it out. And also one of my last advices would be, it's always very important how to bring the product and your idea as a project to the market. And my overview right now is that you have a web interface, which is very easy and fast. You can develop your own application, like with a Swift language for iOS. Or you can use such platforms as I hoped that WhatsApp would be one day, but for me it became a Telegram.
Yeah.
So the platform which gives you this front end and libraries, and actually you don't need to spend even weeks on developing a user interface which you can send to your friend. You can easily do this. And my perspective here was from the very beginning and still, do something quickly, do something fast. If it's just a private project, still show it to someone, and it's very easy to send a Telegram link or even a web page, then or wait until somebody will allow you to put it on the Apple Store, or somebody will download it from your website, and do as simple as possible architecture in the beginning. Yeah. And we before that quickly discussed with you that my first database was comma-separated value file.
Of course.
Which worked perfectly for one of the projects until I had 1,000 users there. And then I just said, okay, I have 1,000 users. That's a nice problem to have. I need to switch to PostgreSQL. But if I would ask ChatGPT from the very beginning, so give me the proper structure, he would tell me, learn PostgreSQL, it's so smart, it's so good, but I don't need it until I prove that my project actually requires this type of infrastructure.
Yeah.
So the idea is, learn coding. If you already know coding, just out of your regular job time, do projects, try them out, send it to your friends, see how it moves. If you think it moves well, go to Google Ads and Meta Ads, spend $200. If you don't have it, bring a friend and say, this is a great project. Let's each of us spend $100 and we have a split revenue and potential share in this company.
Yeah.
Test it on the market, find your market niche, and develop a project. Develop a project which can become product and then the company. Because technology, especially empowered by AI, bring right now limitless possibilities in this development, and I really want to see more and more people doing these things and developing their projects, as you said, for design, for whatever, for hairstyles, for in every sphere. There are so many things which could be done, and people can do this now.
Absolutely. Perfect. Then I'm going to round it off here. Thank you so much for listening. Leave a like if you liked it. Let us know in the comments what you thought. And thanks again for listening. We'll see you on the next one.